Yeah, congrats on the Big Ten title, but again, you were gifted that championship. Tampa has a bigger sense of urgency to win because, as I mentioned, else on any roster, any given, but it's just more so the one page that I've been looking at all night and stuff of that nature. He sacked 70 times this of Simmons and Embiid trying to fall for the network. The conference Oilers went to Tennessee and became the Titan. The NBA had, Major League Soccer had, the W. If the Bears don't reach And with that in mind, everybody, a pleasant good Tuesday evening. A bit of a late start tonight on this Tuesday evening, but welcome in, folks, to another edition of my solo-hosted podcast here on the MI6 Sports Network. That, of course, is the Sports Lounge on this Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. With that in mind, folks, Callan McClurg joining you here tonight from the home studios in San Diego for about the next hour and a half, 2 hours, again, as we did, folks, last week here to kick off this newly revamped program lineup here for the MI6 Sports Network. And again, we thank you all very much for your outstanding viewership and your outstanding support of MI6 over the past several months. And as we continue to chug along and get to bigger and better things on this Tuesday, as we move into our second episode here of the Sports Lounge with Callan McClurg, again, coming your way here from San Diego and up until roughly 10:30 or 11 o'clock here this evening. With that in mind, folks, of course, as usual, the live chat box is wide open for you folks. So again, feel free to fire away with those questions, comments, or concerns about anything going on in the sports world. We'll do our best to, again, get to those throughout the course of our program. We do, though, folks, have a very interesting story, though, developing in the NBA. We'll get to a bit later on in the program, right as we cross over into the second half of our program at around 10 o'clock local time. But again, folks, questions, comments, concerns, feel free, of course, to hit up the live chat box, and I'll do my absolute best to make sure that those comments are, in fact, read live on the air here this evening. However, though, folks, our time together, though, is sadly coming to a close as of this Thursday, as you folks probably may have heard over the course of the past 2 days here on MI6 in regards to my future for the next couple of months here with the network. It is right now going to be put on pause as of this Thursday, due to, again, the nature, as I have said, though, folks, so many times, but more so, I would say a lot of times more so recently, in regards to the increase now of games and announcing gigs that are, in fact, starting operation as of this Friday and this weekend, where, of course, one of my other schools is starting. Minor league hockey is getting kind of, in a way, back up and running very shortly as the NHL kicks off their season on Wednesday night. And with that, folks, as I have said, though, on Sunday and into Monday is beginning on Thursday, my usual off day away from hosting programming here. But as of Wednesday the 13th, folks, will in fact be my final day of programming with you for the next couple of months. And this is not a full-blown or full-blown conclusion of my time with MI6, but for the time being, though, as I have said, though, everybody, and once more, if you're just tuning in or probably didn't catch anything on Sunday or Monday, due to the nature of the ongoing schedules that has been more so with sports folks, as you know very well, though, about the constant changes that have been made, though, with games being postponed, games being canceled due to the nature of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and also with things starting right now and starting in January, starting in February, is my time with you is going to be very, very limited to what I'm going to be able to do. And with that in mind, though, of course, with helping a very big priority and keeping this thing, the moneymaker, the voice, somewhat in tip-top shape, my time with MI6 will have to come to a close for the next couple of months and into the summer, probably towards the fall, though, due to, again, just as I have said, though, folks, so many times, but with the nature of basically 2 college seasons plus minor league hockey, all basically being played at the same exact time, starting this Friday and through the next couple of months into about roughly May, June, or July, my hands are going to be tied with fulfilling those obligations. And again, I won't be able to sadly be here with you Mondays and Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, as in fact this week does in fact progress on into the latter part of it towards Thursday into Friday, where again, my Division II school, the Point Loma Sea Lions, kick off their basketball season in a very weird environment where they are playing the same three schools due to the nature of their conference and their guidelines put forth. So again, folks, sadly, our time here on this Tuesday is going to be one of our last programs that I'll be able to have with you here for the next couple of months, though. However, though, when in fact, though, folks, I come back from my hiatus break for work, the Sports Lounge will in fact reopen. We're not going to have any plans to, again, put the program away for another 8 years and chain things up and lock the doors once more. But we will, though, folks, be back in operation and bigger and better than ever, though, later on in this year. But it will not be right here and right now. As I've said, though, again, D1 school still playing, D2 school starting operation, AHL starting operation very shortly, the NHL starting operation on Wednesdays. So sadly, folks, our time will in fact be cut short here on MI6 starting here today and starting on Thursday, I should say, coming up this week. Isaiah Leung is already writing in. I got my 10 boxes of tissues by my side, going to need it. Hope my house doesn't flood tonight from all the crying that I'll be doing during tonight's program. And also Final Sports Lounge for a while. Sad face emojis. And my man Tyler Work is saying, Cal reopens the lounge after several years only to close again shortly after its return. This sounds like the XFL. Tyler, I don't know if I could have said it any better, my man, but that is exactly where we're at right now. But as mentioned, though, again, unpaid here, as are the other gigs, though, that are in fact paid. But also, again, literally everything is being dumped at my feet. In a good way, though, because, again, I've been away for 10 months, basically 11 months now, basically of not having anything getting back underway. But with that in mind, though, folks, we will once more again see you folks one more time on Wednesday for what I believe the fellow MI6 hosts are dubbing the Thank You Callan program coming up on Wednesday night. But again, folks, we'll have more about that towards the end of our program here this evening. With that, though, in mind, though, folks, let's get to some of the sports coverage zone recap last night and recap Monday's college football national championship game as once again, folks, the Alabama Crimson Tide are once again on top of the mountain after throttling Ohio State 52-24 from Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. I do think, though, folks, this was a foregone conclusion. But I do think, though, that as we had somewhat talked about on Tuesday, or on Monday, I should say, on Wild Sports Talk, though, was the main X factors in my mind as to why this game got very quick out of control is due to the nature of that Ohio State had to basically score touchdowns to kind of keep pace with Alabama. To me, though, Alabama's offense reminded me a lot of like an NBA offense that is running and gunning and scoring on basically every possession. And not just that, though, is that pretty much in a way, though, right now, that Ohio State last night was able to kind of keep that pace, but could not keep that pace for a full 60 minutes, though, where, again, Alabama basically was running the ball down their throats, airing the ball out. I know, of course, that Sam Sharp, though, wrote in last night on Monday that basically Mac Jones was only throwing a lot of balls, or throwing very well, because they were short passes, check down, screen passes, but with the speed, though, of those Alabama defenders, was able to just blister by that Ohio State defense. But more so for me, though, for Ohio State in this game, this, I think, boils down, sadly, though, to losing Trey Sermon early in this game, though, whereas we had heard reports, though, during the game that he had to leave this game, go to the hospital, get his injury checked out, though, but also that really it looked to me, though, that Alabama was really able, though, I think, to hone in and zone in and really stop Ohio State's running game. But as I also said, though, on Monday, folks, you probably agree with me as well, Justin Fields just did not look comfortable throwing the ball downfield on Monday night, where I still think that up in his head, the hit that he took, though, to the ribs, though it may not be a very big factor in people's minds, that injury, though, or at least that shot to the midsection, may have perhaps done more damage than what we probably knew about or know about, or more so knew about going into this game. Because how would he play, though? And to me, he never really was comfortable throwing the ball. Never had time to throw the ball downfield. Whereas I had said, though, on Monday, again, kind of comparing a lot of notes to Monday, but that Mac Jones, and it was a big disparity in both play calling and a disparity as well, though, in the quarterbacks. Because to me, Mac Jones on Monday just had enough time, though, to survey the field, 1,001, 1,002, 1,003. But again, great O-line blocking. And also that Jones, I think, was able to throw the ball. While I think you probably want to cherry pick and choose, well, hey, he threw a screen pass for a first down to Najee Harris. But if, in fact, Mac Jones threw the ball downfield, it was only in a spot, minus a couple of ones in traffic or that were in very tight windows. He had enough time to throw the ball downfield, though, but also right to only where the ball could have been caught by his receiver. Again, I think I mentioned on Monday that there was one throw that I think he had to Devontae Smith in the first half where he literally threw it, I want to say, 30 yards downfield, and Devontae Smith was the only guy who could catch that ball. It literally hit him right square in the number 6 in his hands, a perfect dime right on the money. Where with Justin Fields, though, folks, maybe it was perhaps a bit of a mental hurdle, though, with that injury he suffered against Clemson, but that he never had time to get in rhythm, never had time to find a receiver open downfield, though, but also a lot of clanked passes that I think were maybe a bit rushed by Fields, maybe a lot of the pressure coming off the edge or from the Alabama defenders is what really, I think, separates Jones and Fields in this ballgame. That Jones had all the time in the world to throw the ball, where Justin Fields was rushed, he was hurried, he was knocked down, sacked a couple times, and really, I think, did not really try to be as mobile as usual. I think he had one or two good runs, though, but was not quite the same quarterback, because I do think, though, the injury that he suffered, again, big deal, no big deal in people's minds, though. But when you're talking, folks, about the midsection, the ribs, in football, in hockey even, or even in sports for that matter, that can take a toll on you in regards to either, obviously breathing patterns or just trying to, again, thrust that ball downfield or make make that throw from third base to first base. The torque, the energy, all the pounds of pressure, all the, biology terms you can use for it, though, is basically just more so about what I think separates Fields and Jones in this game, but also the contrast to in play calling, as I also alluded to as well on Monday, in regards to how more so with Jones, it was very perhaps conservative play calling, but it worked. And also I think as well, though, looking at maybe some of the fourth down conversions again, where Nick Saban went for it on fourth down, got the touchdown. I think we saw Ohio State go for it on fourth down and came up empty, though. But I think, but I do believe, though, that the main issue, not really issue, but more so the main separating point of this ball game, Alabama scores touchdowns on basically all their drives. Ohio State had to basically keep that pace. And I think, folks, if you're a basketball fan, to kind of compare some apples to oranges here, in basketball, I think you see a team start very, very hot. And they're making all their threes, making all their baskets. And it's like, well, they can't keep up this hot shooting all game. Where in Alabama's case, if you're not scoring touchdowns, you're basically already out of the game. I mean, you're basically already losing, and you're behind the eight ball playing catch up. If you cannot answer Alabama with touchdowns when they're scoring touchdowns, and you can't answer back with touchdowns, you are in deep trouble. Now, yes, Ohio State was able to do that for a bit, though. But could that offense of Ohio State, though, kind of keep up with that Alabama pace, though, of, hey, okay, we scored a touchdown, you scored a touchdown, we're going to score a touchdown again. And they did so for maybe the first, I'd say, 2 drives. But then, though, Alabama began separating itself from Ohio State, though. And I think and I believe, though, that just in my opinion, though, to me, I think it does, in fact, go a bit. And again, it's not really, I don't think it's anyone's fault, though. I don't think there's any blame to be given on Ryan Day's part, Justin Fields' part. But again, you're facing Alabama. And again, like I've said, though, folks, so many times, though, in this segment here, is that when Alabama is scoring touchdowns, you have got to score touchdowns and keep up that pace. You can't afford field goals. To me, though, sadly, Ohio State, I hate to make this comparison, but Ohio State looked a lot like the Chicago Bears, where if you are playing a team like, example, a Green Bay or, for example, a Alabama, you have got to score touchdowns. You can't afford to have great drives and then field goals when you're playing Alabama, because you know damn well they are going to march down the field very methodically. Now, again, yes, you can probably cherry pick about, well, hey, it's screen passes, it's check downs, nothing really downfield, though. But yet, when Alabama throws the ball deep downfield, it's Devontae Smith, 30 yards downfield wide open for a play at the 15-yard line out of bounds, or he's just going diagonally, with a middle linebacker playing center field, playing, prevent defense. And Devontae Smith makes the catch, though, and just basically runs into the end zone untouched for a touchdown. I think he had 3 touchdowns in that game in the first half on Monday night. And just more so for me, though, again, you can nitpick or cherry pick about Alabama's offense, but it's a fine-tuned, well-oiled machine, though. I think we know, though, folks, about how methodical a Nick Saban-led ball club has been, though. But I do think, though, while we want to praise Alabama's offense, I want to give a bit of love, though, to Alabama's defense, because I think that they did probably one of the most complete jobs, though. Again, minus a couple of plays, though, where again you saw Fields run for first downs or deep in Alabama territory. They basically locked down this Buckeyes running offense, but also as well, though, sadly for Ohio State, though, the other big loss, though, in this game was Trey Sermon. Him being knocked out of the game, though, rushed to the hospital or going to the hospital to be looked at with that injury. That's where I think, though, sadly, Ohio State's hopes and dreams of pulling off the major upset kind of in a way came crashing down, because not having that two-headed monster of Sermon and Master Teague was not really, I think that was a very big-time body blow that the Buckeyes were not really able, I think, to really bounce back from. And sadly, when you lose one big playmaker, it kind of has a bit of a ripple effect, though. And I think I can kind of speak for that, though, as well, though, seeing teams that have had to play games without, maybe a quarterback, maybe a good shooter in basketball, maybe their top goalie isn't playing in soccer or hockey, or their ace is out in baseball, that you see it a lot, though, sadly, where, one player in a way makes a big difference. So, and of course, you don't want to really put too much stock on that or in that with this being a team sport. But I think that, as you saw, though, perhaps with Sermon going down, it's like, man, this has a big time ripple effect, though, as well. But again, folks, once more, Alabama wins the national championship over the Ohio State Buckeyes. Again, very handily, 52-24 in favor of the Tide over the Buckeyes. Plenty of thoughts, though, as well, about both my hiatus and also as well with the game. John Alcorn writes in, all the Avengers come together. Avengers assemble. Casey King says, Callan, good evening, and we will miss you on here. I'm going to miss all of you as well. I'll have more about that in my final thoughts here tonight, and also more on Wednesday as well. Casey, about the game, he says, Cal, not a big Bama fan, but I got to say that Nick Saban is definitely going to go down as the best college football coach of all time and got the best recruiting class coming in. I believe I saw a stat, Casey, that said that every one of Saban's recruiting classes has won at least one national championship during his time at Alabama. If someone can correct me on that, that'd be very huge, though. But man, oh man, Saban, Casey, not just that, though. I think if you think about Alabama football, you're talking about, Saban and the late, great Bear Bryant is probably two of the greatest college football coaches maybe of all time. So I definitely agree, though, about Saban and the job he's done. John Alcorn also says, my full thank you to Callan will be on Thursday, plus roasting Isaiah Leung on that one dude. Oh, boy, that'll be great to tune into on my off day. Tyler Work writes in about the game. He says, Cal, the way that they played last night, there was nobody that could have kept up with Bama's offense. Big time credit, though, to Steve Sarkisian. His play calling was awesome. Lots of motion and short routes to create confusion and mismatches. Tyler, I agree about Sarkisian's play calling, about the mismatch, about the play calling on Monday. But also, I want to go back to that one goal line drive they had where they literally had sent, I believe, Devontae Smith in motion, and he was kind of in a way back forth. Like it was like he was a windshield wiper out there. And again, he got his man to miss in a short screen pass. He's wide open for the touchdown. And again, I think a lot of that credit, though, does in fact go to Steve Sarkisian. But I think as well, Tyler, it's a mismatch in play calling, though, where again, like I had said, though, as well, Tyler, with Justin Fields kind of being a wounded duck out there, with, again, maybe some of that injury perhaps not healing in that week, or perhaps still being mental, that he did not look comfortable throwing the ball last night on Monday. I don't know if a lot of people put stock in that, though. But I think, though, when you have, again, dealt with an injury of some type, though, it is in the back of your mind, though, about, maybe you have to perhaps hold things back, maybe not press or go or be too over-aggressive. But definitely, I would agree about the play calling of Steve Sarkisian being a very key cog to the Tide's victory on Monday. Also, as well, John says, I meant the Avengers Assemble for Wednesday's episode on the 6th. Definitely agree as well. My good man Isaiah Leung writes in. He says, Callan, the turning point in this game for me was when Ohio State was down 21-14 in the second quarter, but they had the ball at the Ohio State 4 on fourth down. They said to kick the field goal instead of going for it. You have to go for it there since you have to match this offense. TD for TD. I definitely, again, Isaiah, this goes back to my very, perhaps scarce or apples to orange comparison about a very hot shooting basketball team. If you cannot keep up that pace of them scoring baskets, you're going to find yourself behind the 8 ball. Alabama, again, they don't give you an ounce of time to breathe. If you are not scoring a touchdown, you are in deep trouble. Now, again, I think that we probably talked about this, Isaiah, on Monday on Wild Sports Talk about analytics. And that maybe that the analytics may have said, oh, take the for sure points, though. But I think, though, when you're playing Alabama, forget the numbers. Throw them out the window and run over them with a bus. Don't bother going by the numbers against Alabama, because you need to answer every single time that you are giving up a touchdown, not with field goals. This is not Matt Nagy and the Bears offense where you have to settle for field goals. You have got to get touchdowns, not field goals, not turnovers. You got to get touchdowns when you're playing Alabama and teams of that caliber. Also, Tyler says, Callan, you are correct. Every one of Nick Saban's recruiting classes at Bama has won at least one title in his time. And also, Isaiah has a question. Callan, do you think that Alabama can continue their success of offense going from Sarkisian now to Bill O'Brien as their offensive coordinator? Again, folks, Steve Sarkisian is on his way now to be the head coach of the Texas Longhorns. Isaiah, I don't know about that, but I do think, though, that Nick Saban probably is going to sit Bill O'Brien down in a chair and basically give him a very nice wire-brushed style lecture in regards to, hey, no funny business, man. This is my program, and this is not the NFL, and this is not the Houston Texans. You're going to come in here and do as you're told, and if not, and if you don't like it, then get out of here. I think that there's a very short leash, I think, Isaiah, with Nick Saban again, because I think he's not a full-blown control freak, though. But Saban has this thing down to a science, basically. And I would think, though, that if his offense is not going well early in the season, I know it may be a cream puff schedule, but if there's some flaws early in the year, though, Saban will not tolerate any of this nonsense from Bill O'Brien. So we'll see how things do, in fact, go. And also, John says analytics, Callan, mean as much as analytics in his mind mean as much as TDs and garbage time. Laughing face. I definitely agree for sure about that, as well as things do, in fact, go on here at this rate and at this point in time with, once more, Alabama winning the national title over Ohio State, 52-24 in favor of the Tide over the Buckeyes. With that, folks, on to another week of NFL postseason action. We went from 16 down now and into, or I should say we went from 14 now down into the next round of the, into the NFL divisional playoff round, folks. We again go from the 14 teams into now the last 4 matchups now of the divisional playoff round. That, of course, folks, brings us to the Browns and Chiefs, Ravens and Bills, Rams, Packers, Tampa Bay, and New Orleans, setting up for a action-packed weekend of football for the second round in the NFL divisional round coming up this week, folks. With that in mind, folks, let's get to some of the predictions here that I have to lay out here at this time for you. In fact, get to a quick break here at the top of the hour here coming up shortly. With it, though, folks, for the first game between Cleveland, or just we'll go by conference here, Browns and Chiefs again, folks. What a great feel-good story, folks. I know that, of course, a lot of us here picked Pittsburgh to win this game on Sunday. But I think, though, folks, as we have said, though, a couple of times on here, and I can vouch for this, though, plenty of times as well in my playing career, the last thing you want to do in sports is rile up or motivate the opposition. And I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers, folks, probably are the biggest offenders of poking the bear and motivating some other ball clubs recently. Now, again, I know it's one thing, folks, to play with confidence and swagger, but at the same time, though, there's a difference. And I think, folks, it sadly boils back, or maybe not sadly, but I think boils down, though, to the childish antics of Juju Smith-Schuster with these lame TikTok trends of dancing on teams' logos. There's a reason why, folks, in the NHL, and I know that hockey's probably not your forte, folks, but there's a reason, though, why hockey players are very superstitious, though, about being in the locker room and not stepping on even your team's logo. There's something about not stepping on a logo in hockey. But it's a bigger deal, I think, though, in pro football, because I think we've seen, though, where guys have gone to midfield, though, and literally wiped their feet like it's a doormat on a team's logo. That, of course, riles up teams, though. But the last thing that you want to do, folks, in sports, any level, high school, college, pee-wee, pros, you name it, is to get the opposition riled up. And I think that the Cleveland Browns, who had lost 17 straight games at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh, on top of the fact of being motivated by Juju Smith-Schuster and being egged on by his remarks of, oh, these are the same old Browns, who cares? We're playing, it's Cleveland, come on now. Well, they got a very nice helping of humble pie on a silver platter handed to them by the Browns on Sunday. However, though, folks, the Browns are facing the KC Chiefs, though, at Arrowhead Stadium in KC, Missouri, coming up this week, though. Now, usually, though, folks, sometimes that bye week can usually hurt a ball club. But I think, though, that with the Chiefs, though, still having this very insane record, again, they went 14-2 in the regular season. I do, in fact, though, have KC winning it, though, but in a very, perhaps, close game, though. Maybe it does, in fact, become a blowout early. Maybe it's over, and maybe it's a taste of their own medicine, though. But if the Browns, though, can get the running game going again, if they can get Chubb and Hunt going as a two-man or, two-headed monster, that could perhaps, though, give the Browns a bit of an edge because about how perhaps bad, though, this KC defense, about how the Chiefs defense has been, though, during the course of a season. But I would still, though, take Pat Mahomes, who's been in the big moment plenty of times in his career, though, Super Bowl champ, that I think that playoff experience does, in fact, go the way of the Chiefs. So I have the Chiefs winning that ball game, but probably, though, in a squeaker. Probably not in a very big lopsided game, though, because I do think, though, that Baker Mayfield and that Browns offense can do just enough to keep this game close, though. It may, though, folks, be a very similar thing, though, to Bama and Ohio State, though, where you have to score touchdowns. Can't afford field goals. Can't afford to take field goals or turn the ball over. But I do, though, folks, have KC winning, though, over the Browns coming up this weekend. Then, folks, Baltimore visits Buffalo, where, again, we are also looking at Lamar Jackson preparing for a snow game, perhaps, against Buffalo. I still like Buffalo at home in this game. I know, of course, they were in a very big dogfight with the Colts last week, though. With Baltimore, though, to me, though, that this is a game, though, that's going to be, I think, won or lost, not by the quarterbacks, by the running game. Will it be David Singletary getting loose for him and Zach Moss doing good things for Buffalo? Or will it be Baltimore's running backs, Mark Ingram mainly getting things going? Or will Lamar Jackson have to probably do more than he probably wants to do, though, with getting free, scrambling out of pressure, but also Buffalo's defense could also be a very big factor as well, though. But also, I would say, though, the weather is also a factor, again, in my mind, for Buffalo. As Marv Levy, folks, once said, the great coach of those 4 straight Super Bowl appearances by the Bills, when it's too tough for them, it's just right for us. Now, again, though, Baltimore is probably used to that cold weather, though. Pittsburgh and Cleveland, Cincinnati late in the season, though. But I like Buffalo, but probably, again, in a squeaker. I will probably go with Buffalo to win this ball game in a very close matchup. Again, probably similar, though, to what we saw, though, with, in fact, things going the route, though, of the Bills game with Indianapolis. But I like Buffalo to knock off Baltimore. Close game. Boils down, though, in my mind, to the running backs in this game. Over, folks, in the NFC, the Rams and Packers from perhaps a frozen tundra of Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Again, that week off will probably, I think, though, hinder Green Bay for a bit, though. Now, my thing, though, about the Rams is the weather being a factor. Again, indoor team going outside, but also Jared Goff's health, again, becomes a factor. But this Rams defense does intrigue me. The defense for the Rams does intrigue me, though. But again, they are against Aaron Rodgers. Again, though, the Chiefs and Packer are in a very similar spot, though, with them having that week off. Again, probably some fatigue, a bit slow out of the gate, though. I think for the sake of the weather, Green Bay gets the edge. But it would not surprise me, though, if the Rams win this game, though. So my pick is Green Bay, though. But if the Rams win this game, though, it'll be won, though, by their defense. And plus, Green Bay's defense has probably been very much like what they're named for. They've looked like cheese. They have been Swiss cheese. They've been grated cheese for majority of the season, or at least recently, though, against the run game. The Rams have a chance. But I believe, though, it boils down, though, to if the Rams can get the running game going, and also can their defense kind of, in a way, build off that game against Seattle this past week, though. But I still like Green Bay, though, for the fact of Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback, but also the weather being a big-time factor in my mind as well. But I like Green Bay, though, in a squeaker, though. But if the Rams win, though, it would not surprise me because this would be a win, though, basically predicated, though, on the play of the running game, but also Aaron Donald and that very, very scary and very intimidating Rams defense in my mind. Last game, though, folks, is before we get to our quick break here. Tampa Bay and New Orleans, round 3 between Breeze and Brady. That, as Tom Brady said to troll him and Drew Brees, it will be played on the History Channel. No, it will not be on the History Channel, folks. But I still will once again, though, go with New Orleans because New Orleans, I know, of course, it was a very lackluster effort from the Saints, though, against the Chicago Bears on Sunday. This past week, though, I think, though, with Tampa Bay also having to play Washington, they were in a dogfight as well, though. This game, I think, though, boils down, though, to the first big mistake. First big turnover, first big interception. I'm still going to go with New Orleans, though, in this ball game, and for it being the third time, though. Again, though, although, folks, we have seen, though, where there have been matchups of three games between divisional opponents, though, which have gone in favor of an upset. Again, Cleveland over Pittsburgh, Rams over Seattle, though. I don't know about this one, though, and I know that this is probably the best game on the schedule, though. But I still like New Orleans for the fact of it is of the game being played at home, though, and there is a bit of a home field advantage, though, at this rate. Again, I know about Breeze and his history in the postseason, but I still, though, think that at this rate, it's very even, Steven. Great quarterbacks, great running games, but it does, I think, boil down, though, to the first big mistake, though. If this is made by Drew Brees, Tampa gets the advantage right away. But if it's vice versa, though, where Tampa Bay goes back to week 1 habits, though, against New Orleans, where they're having bad plays, drop passes, penalties in bad situations, I am going to perhaps, though, still, though, go with the Saints to win this game. So, again, folks, I have KC, Buffalo, Green Bay, and New Orleans to move on to the championship round for the postseason party coming up here this week. Some thoughts here real quick at this rate and at this point in time. With that in mind, John says real quick, though, folks, about Bill O'Brien becoming the new offensive coordinator for Alabama. Nick Saban does not put up with BS. Again, to my point, though, about more so. I think, though, John, to your point, though, that's what I kind of alluded to, though. That first day, though, when O'Brien comes to Tuscaloosa, this has to be a point, though, where basically Nick Saban is going to perhaps, in my mind, put a former NFL coach into a chair and basically go like this to him. Listen, this ain't Houston. This ain't, this is not the NFL. This isn't Houston. This is my way or the highway. You don't like what I'm going to be, basically it's going to be like a drill instructor to a recruit in the military. Finger pointing, F-bombs, you name it, basically about, hey, snap out of it. This isn't the NFL. This is my program. This is Alabama football. This is how things are going to be done, not with what you perhaps did, though, in the NFL. At this rate is what I think to that point, John. Also, he says, don't get caught up in a feel-good story. Focus on the next game and the next week. In regards, though, to, as I allude to, about the Browns and Steelers, and again with the Browns clobbering Pittsburgh this past week, Casey has, Casey King has Casey over Cleveland, the Bills in a close one over Baltimore. But we're not surprised, though, if the Ravens win. New Orleans over Tampa Bay, and yes, I'm going to go with the Rams over Green Bay in a close game. Again, Casey, like I said, though, man, if the Rams win, I think it goes solely on Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson Jr. in the running backs, and Aaron Donald in that defense that perhaps wins in that ball game at this rate, and also as well. Tyler Works says a number of the Chiefs starters set out during Week 17 as well. Do you think that KC wins because Mahomes seems to come through on those final drives when it counts the most? But don't be shocked, though, if the Chiefs come out slow out of the gate. Definitely agree about that, Tyler. And I think that as well with Green Bay, though, could be a bit of a lackluster kind of sleepwalk through the start. With that in mind, Isaiah, because of his very bad AFC West prediction, he's going to have Cleveland somehow stun the Chiefs on Sunday with the upset. He also says, I agree with you, Callan. I will go with Baltimore and Buffalo being a very close and low-scoring game. Isaiah also says about the other game between the Rams and the Packers. He says the Rams need to do what the Niners did last year in the NFC Championship game, run the ball and play great defense, and you will win. Green Bay is one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. John Alcorn says that Breeze will be embarrassed. Breeze has a bad history in the postseason. Well, if it was a bad history, they would have lost to Chicago week 1 of it. But again, it is what it is. He says, hence why 1 ring. Hey, 1 is still greater than 0, John, sadly. And also Isaiah says, rooting for the Bucs, but picking the Saints since that the Tampa Bay defense is what Casey King calls Higgins. Breeze will be torching these guys come the upcoming weekend of NFL football. With that, folks, we'll step aside for a moment. We come back, more NFL coverage and also some very interesting news out of Houston with the Rockets and also the NBA facing some big-time COVID issues, folks. We'll be right back after a quick timeout and this very brief segue and transition / intermission at this rate. Yeah, congrats on the Big Ten title, but again, you were gifted that championship. Tampa has a bigger sense of urgency to win because, as I mentioned, else on any roster, any given, but it's just more so the one page that I've been looking at all night and stuff of that nature. We sacked 70 times this of Simmons and Embiid trying to fall for the network. The conference Oilers went to Tennessee and became the Titan. The NBA had, Major League Soccer had, the W. If the Bears don't reach All right, we're back, folks, after a quick timeout right there to get back underway. Again, folks, the Sports Lounge rolling on for at least the next half an hour or so here. Again, folks, as a reminder, but this will be, sadly, once again, the final program for the Sports Lounge after just 2 episodes, sadly. But again, due to the nature, as I have said, though, at the top of the program, we'll have more about that, of course, on Wednesday, the 13th, coming up tomorrow night. But again, folks, again, citing a very huge increase of work, as mentioned, folks, as I've already said, though, but my Division I school and D2 school plus minor league hockey is all starting basically at the same point in time coming up this week. So I'll be having to step away for a few months here to, again, fulfill those obligations and, again, get back to the announcing grind. And also, folks, as I've kind of teased, though, but after the show tonight, though, I'm working on right now a story for the MI6 website, though, really of a firsthand perspective about how, in fact, it's been, though, getting back to work, though, during the midst of an ongoing pandemic, plus also, again, all the factors and all the stuff going on. So we'll have more about that as well when, in fact, the time does, in fact, move on. With that, folks, following their very perhaps embarrassing loss in people's minds, but more so a expected loss to the Saints on Sunday, the Chicago Bears, per reports gathered from some of the close sources with the ball club, have in fact confirmed, though, that both head coach Matt Nagy and GM Ryan Pace will, in fact, be back with Chicago next season, while longtime defensive coordinator Chuck Pagano has announced his plans to retire following the conclusion of Chicago's season. You know, folks, I've said this so many times, though, but this is no surprise. I know people were probably asking me as a Bears fan, what do you think about Nagy and Pace? I know that Isaiah and John Alcorn and everyone else has kind of been asking. And I've said, though, and I don't want to, make it sound like I'm singling those two guys out, though, is, I kind of knew from the get-go that more so Matt Nagy would not be let go because the excuse that was going to be used, and it has been used again, Matt Nagy has not had a losing season in Chicago. 12-4, 8-8, 8-8, 2 to 3 years he's been there. They've made the postseason. Now, Ryan Pace, on the other hand, though, is a little bit interesting because now, of course, you're talking about roster procurement, where now I think that you're probably, sadly, not going to see Allen Robinson back in Chicago because of Ryan Pace and how he has been, though, so far with how it's been. But is this a surprise to me? Absolutely not, because I think that, as I have said, though, everybody, so many times over the course of this NFL season about the Bears is due to the nature of the ongoing circumstances facing all of us, but more so with the Bears at least, though. No fans, no revenue, but also the ownership in charge right now. They don't like change. They have not been for that for a long time recently. And in a way, though, the Bears, I think, have come to expect and respect and embrace mediocrity. I think if I was able to have a guest on, my man John Zagulo, I think I've got his name wrong, though, but John works on WCKG in Chicago or in Illinois. And John is probably the most blunt, honest Chicago sports host I've heard in my time following the Bears over the course of the season and recently as well. John basically says it right, though, that, we're going to, let's blame Trubisky because Anthony Miller got tossed or Javon Wims drops a wide open touchdown pass. To me, though, this is not a surprise and should not be a surprise to any Bears fans let alone football fans, about how the regime in Chicago operates is sadly they are right now embracing mediocrity. And that's what the Bears do not need to have happen. But about Chuck Pagano, though, folks, Chuck, though, is a bit of a surprise, though. But I do think, though, I probably could see this coming, though. But I think for reasons, though, folks, that I think you could probably, respect. And it's not for him chasing a head coaching job anywhere. It's his health. As we have seen, though, folks, about, Gary Kubiak, but also Chuck Pagano, Ron Rivera, again, those two guys beating cancer at one point in time over the course of the season or during their time coaching, that health might be a priority for Chuck Pagano. Again, in wake right now of the ongoing pandemic with COVID, but also, it could be a lot of factors, though. I mean, it probably isn't health, though, but it could, though, I think, though, folks, be a lot of other things, though. But if you're to ask me about this being a surprise, absolutely not. This is not a surprise to me whatsoever. And I do think, though, that while it might be a tired act, though, this, I think, though, will probably solidify that the Bears perhaps move on from Mitch Trubisky. And sadly, I would agree, though, with my man, John Zagul again. John, once more, is a radio host on WCKG, I believe, in Elmhurst, Illinois, or in at least in the greater Chicago area. John's right, though. I don't expect Trubisky back. Reason being, though, is because, much like what Casey King says about Philadelphia, the Chicago fan base is about ready to blow this kid out of town. And I do think, though, this may sound stupid and ludicrous and perhaps way out of bounds, but Trubisky has gotten a raw deal, in my mind. And I think in John Z's mind as well, though, because of the coaching staff around him. The talent has been there recently, but that the constant changing between Nagy calling plays, Bill Lazor calling plays, but also, I think as well, though, the benching for Nick Foles probably, in his mind, probably did a number on him. And I think, though, as well, that Stephen A. Smith said it right, though, during the six-game losing streak that the Bears went on, though. When you bench a young kid like Trubisky, that can kill their confidence. That is the last thing you want to do as an organization, is run a young player out of town. And I know that it's probably more so the fans, butting in on radio or TV or writing in or whatever it is. But to me, though, for me, it's been a very unfair situation for Mitch Trubisky. And I know that shareable Stephen Wang kind of, in a way, threw me under the bus in a good way, though, in regards to my thoughts about Ohio State not belonging in the playoff field because of, the rules got changed for them, stuff like that, though. But it's not going to be fair. Life's not fair. Sports isn't fair, stuff of that caliber. But more so for me, though, is that Trubisky it's been an unfair deal. Bad coach, bad changing of the guard, though, of, one game it's Nagy calling plays, next game it's Lazor calling plays. And then, of course, he gets benched for Nick Foles for basically a good chunk of the season. Then when they go back to, but yet, when they go back to Trubisky, they get it. He gets them in the playoffs. And I think that as well, again, John Zagul, again, from WCKG in Chicago could say it better than I can. But when Trubisky does get back, I think, though, folks, if Trubisky could have been the quarterback for the entire season, that could have been a year, though, where the Bears probably had a better record than 8-8, though. And I think that a lot of people have said, though, that are probably, that are experts on this whole matter, is like, you couldn't keep Nick Foles in for the whole season. Yeah, Foles played great, though, in certain situations, though, but not for that long. I think that you probably could have benched Trubisky for one game, but not for 6 or 7 games in a row, though, again. And more so, to me, though, that kills a player's confidence. I can vouch for that. Sophomore year number 1 playing varsity baseball. I start every game at second base. And come league play, I get pulled for kind of, in a way, no reason. Maybe some pettiness, but it was really no big deal. But it was kind of a confidence killer because, hey, you have a first-year guy playing varsity baseball. Yeah, he may be overmatched, but why all of a sudden? Why wasn't he benched maybe earlier in the season to let someone else play the spot? To me, though, it's a very fair comparison to Foles and Trubisky because basically that's what I compare it to is, okay, he's not playing great, But why bench him for 7 straight games or 8 straight games or for majority of a season because of 1 or 2 bad games? Again, I don't want to say it's a, basically hypocrisy, but it's like, why? Why is there a reason to pull again, for a young quarterback like Trubisky, this could kill this kid's confidence. But again, folks, once more, the Bears plan to retain both Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, while defensive coordinator Chuck Pagano is set to retire, per sources familiar with the Chicago Bears and the situation at hand. With that in mind, though, John Alcorn says that Callan is right. Isaiah also adds, this might be an extremely bold take, but I don't think that Pagano decided to retire on his own terms. Believe that he was scapegoated and forced into retirement. Fair observation, Isaiah, but I don't know, though, if you would really want to scapegoat a defensive coordinator who, again, had no Roquan Smith, though, and who had a defense, much like Bears in the Woods, though, fall into traps of hard counts, punching players, bad penalties, you name it. That's not on Pagano. That's that's a player discipline problem. Not Pagano's fault in my mind about that one. I do think, though, it's more so health more so than anything else as well. John Alcorn says, Callan, I agree, but how do we explain the 2018 season, a complete one-year wonder as an entire team? Basically, I think that John, they were a one-hit wonder like Vanilla Ice and Ice Ice Baby back in the 90s. One-year wonder, one-hit wonder was the Bears in 2018. Now I think, though, as well, though, John, sadly, because of the fan revolt, Trubisky is going to be the odd man out, sadly, at this rate. Because with Pace back, Nagy back, Trubisky, I think, though, John, John, you may not agree with this, though, man, but as a former player, though, it's a very valid reasoning to not come back. Well, you benched me for 8 weeks. Why should I come back? When I basically led your team after I was out for 8 weeks because of coach's decision to bench me. I led your team to the postseason. Why should I come back to what seems to be in my mind towards Trubisky a very, very toxic atmosphere towards, again, it's not to single out one player or single him out, though, but again, as my comparison states, though, again, here I played every game, John, from the start of the season until the first game of when conference play, league play starts, and I sit the bench for the first 4 to 6 weeks of, first 4 to 6 games, where we also, John, as well, had a Juju Smith-Schuster incident, though, of calling a school the same old Cardinals. We lose after we had after they have, when that school's not been great, though, and that was a game I was not playing in, and we lose the game, and we're running sprints for an hour after the game concludes. Karma gets you, sadly. Casey King also says the Bears should say hello to Carson Wentz. Don't be surprised if he ends up there. I do agree that Mitch is getting a raw deal and probably gone and out of Chicago. Either Wentz or Deshaun Watson. I do think, though, that Chicago would probably go the route of Wentz. But I could see Deshaun Watson, though, because he's more of a mobile option than Carson Wentz. Because, as I have said, though, Casey, Carson Wentz to me just does not seem to be comfortable being a mobile quarterback due to that ACL injury he suffered his first year, I think, or rookie year with the Eagles, or maybe year 2. That usually can stay in a player's minds. And he also says, Casey says that Isaiah could be right about Pagano being forced out. Don't be surprised, though, if Pagano ends up in Tampa Bay, as he is close friends with Bruce Arians. That could be a possibility as well. But to kind of, in a way, blame the whole playoff loss on a 8-8 ball club on the defensive coordinator when his players are playing undisciplined is probably valid. But I mean, really, at this rate, what more does Pagano have to do, though, to still, what else is left? What else in my mind is basically left for him to do? And Isaiah says, please, San Francisco, unlike what Grant Cohn suggested, do not trade for Mitch Trubisky. Watch it happen now, Isaiah, because you're a jinx. Also, as well, John Alcorn says, Callan, I agree. They clearly don't want him. Why would he play for a team that does not want him in any job? If they don't like you and you don't want don't want you there, you're likely not going to stay. That's what I think, though. But again, folks, as mentioned, with the Bears, Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace set to return per sources, while Chuck Pagano is set to retire, per reports gathered by sources that have the knowledge of the situation. With that, folks, a very interesting storyline right now is the NBA, of course, has been battling some very severe COVID-19 issues right now. Again, we have seen, folks, so many games recently, sadly, PPD'd due to the nature right now of COVID-19, where, again, we've seen, I believe, a game on Wednesday also postponed due to the nature of COVID-19 testing, contact tracing, and positive tests. Sorry, folks, for turning up the camera real quick here, but had to pull up a very interesting quote here that Isaiah Leung actually sent to me earlier in the night, real quick here. But with that, though, folks, basically at this rate, with the NBA right now having some very big-time issues. Now, again, folks, we're roughly 3 weeks into the season right now with the NBA getting underway. And again, once more, playing games without fans in majority of the venues right now in the NBA. But, folks, my only concern here, though, and I know it's been a very talked about talking point amongst our great fans out there, is why is the NBA even playing right now? Why can they wait until January or February to start operation? Sadly, folks, money rules the roost, as we know, though. But I do think, though, that that the NBA COVID protocols, still in my mind, are a lot better than what the NFL has had going on, college football, and Major League Baseball. That right now the NBA and the NHL have all their COVID testing ducks in a row. But right now, though, I've wondered, folks, and I said this on Monday, that whereabouts are these tests coming from? But also, I think that there was a very valid point brought up too on ESPN.com on Monday night. How many actual tests, though, are coming back positive from actual play on the court? I don't know if that's really been brought up, though. I know we have more so, I think, folks, been very honed in and zoned in more so on, guys going to the club, going to get to a restaurant. While I think that it's valid, I think, to obviously have concerns about guys and their off-the-court antics or their off-the-court activities, though. But how much stock, though, are we actually not putting in, though, to COVID-19 issues happening during a game, during the course of play? I mean, I think we saw with the Sixers and Seth Curry, he had a positive test like Justin Turner come during the course of a ball game. While I think, though, folks, that we have the right, I think, to worry about guys being away from the floor and away from their teammates, and kind of in a way, George Orwell, 1984, and kind of having Big Brother spy on them, because of them being away from the court. I don't think, folks, we're putting enough stock and enough time and energy into actually what is happening during the course of a game in regards to guys on the bench, guys on the floor, and stuff of that caliber, guys celebrating baskets with high fives and stuff of that nature. I do, though, folks, still think, though, that the NBA will be fine, because Adam Silver, I think, though, he's got his hand kind of in a way hovering over that red button to shut down operation and go the route as well of maybe going back to a bubble. But I do think, though, as I said, though, folks, on Monday, and I stand by my remarks, though, once the first half of the season ends in March, where you have that de facto all-star break, that they may begin considering the bubble again for the playoffs. That may, in fact, hurt, though, sadly, in regards to revenue. Maybe fans can come back, though, in May or in June or July for the NBA Finals, though. But that to get to the finish line and get back to a regular basketball calendar where you're back to getting the draft done in the summertime, a full 8-game preseason or a 6-game preseason, and a full 82-game season schedule with full arenas again, the NBA has to consider all their options, and I'm sure that they are going to do that eventually, though. But I do think, though, folks, that while it's been one thing to talk about COVID away from the floor, away from games, though, during the games, though, is where I think, though, but sadly, a lot of these tests, though, are in fact coming up positive. Now, I do think, though, that sadly, it sucks, though, to see games canceled, but I do think, though, that all of us, though, I think that have voiced our concerns, though, about the NBA starting this early after a 71-day or 73-day offseason, we have the right to be upset, though. Now, I'm not upset about this, or I'm not upset about Adam Silver trying to get stuff started, but it's more so for me, though, it's some concern because of the number of teams who have had to postpone games, because, though, as I have said, though, of thin rosters, I do, though, but folks, I do think, though, that Adam Silver, though, in the plan, though, was right, though, where at least, though, as we have said, though, here so many times on this network, though, make teams forfeit. Forfeits are a part, though, of the COVID-19 protocols, though, where if there's been like repeated abuse of the rules in regards to maybe players violating it, that somewhere along the lines, though, that there's fines, there's suspensions, but there's also to the point, though, where they will start making teams forfeit. And I think though, folks, that is what Major League Baseball should have done and what the NFL should have done. None of this, postpone the game, wait a couple of weeks. No, make them forfeit for their reckless actions away from the field and away from the court. Now, again, folks, again, everybody, I don't want to have this be a full-blown George Orwell novel of 1984, where again, we're going to be having surveillance on these guys, basically watching them, their every move and watching them via their doorbell cams and, hidden security cameras, though. But there's got to be a better way, though, to monitor stuff on and off the floor, though. Now, I know, of course, they've had some sensors put in place, though, where there may, in fact, kind of like the exposure notifications app on your phone, though, where you probably can get notified if you've been exposed or been around someone who's been exposed to COVID. But I think, though, that the NBA is still going to be fine, though, with all the loopholes in place, and also that there is, in fact, though, some very harsher punishments, though, in regards when it comes and boils down, though, as well, to stuff of that caliber of, reckless actions and stuff of that nature. But again, though, folks, the NBA facing some very big COVID-19 issues right now at this rate. Casey King also chimes in. If, in fact, Trubisky goes to the Niners, Isaiah will probably get a Mitch Trubisky jersey. Casey, I would probably think it would happen as well. And also, John Alcorn says, but Callan, when did the tests come back? They don't come back immediately, though that's an issue. Depending on what kind of system they have, though, because, John, I can say, though, that there may be a bit of a different testing system for the NBA than what maybe you and I probably go get if we had to get COVID tested in general. Is that, for example, I got COVID tested before Christmas at USD, and I got my negative results back, I think, John, the next day. So I think it depends about maybe it's a 15-minute test or a day test. So, I mean, I'm not fully sure, though, John, but I know what happened during the course of a game, though. But again, though, I think that opens up, though, a can of worms, though, John, concerning maybe false positives, false negatives. You don't have that conclusive actual positive or negative. You kind of get like, maybe in between, though. That's where I think, though, you kind of walk that fine line, though, of, go out there and risk it, basically. And also, Isaiah says, count after the Matt Campbell fiasco, anything is possible, laughing out loud. Again, who knows what will really happen. With that in mind, though, folks, some very interesting remarks made, though, following the conclusion of the Lakers and the after the Rockets got pummeled tonight by the Lakers down there in Houston. Folks, a quick tweet here from Tim McMahon of ESPN. James Harden said via his post-game press conference tonight, a very damning quote here from James Harden, which reads the following again from Tim McMahon, folks, of ESPN. Quote, James Harden says that the Rockets are, quote, just not good enough. I love this city. I literally have done everything that I can. I mean, this situation is crazy. It's something that I don't think can be fixed. Close quote from a very disgruntled James Harden, who I saw, folks, look to be very, very heavy, still a bit out of shape, and also, of course, seeing his team get blown up by getting blown out in this game by the Lakers. Folks, those comments right there should spell disaster for Rockets fans. Seeing the franchise star who has been so vital to that franchise and to that city, basically saying, you know what, I'm throwing in the towel. I know I'm done with I'm done with this team. I'm done with this city. I'm done with this organization. This reminds me so much, folks, of Eric Bledsoe tweeting out the words, "Get me out of here," from his barber's chair in Phoenix to get him out of there. Of course, he got fined for the remarks and then got dealt to Milwaukee and stuff of that nature. But now, folks, this to me is very damn close to Eric Bledsoe in Phoenix with, the tweet of "Get me out of here." This right here, folks, is probably going to be one that probably is probably going to be warranted of a fine for the remarks, though. But if this does not start some type of a chain reaction of Harden beginning to sit out games. He goes into Kyrie Irving mode and kind of, goes into airplane mode and says, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm not talking to the media, talking to any of my teammates, or I'm going to leave the team for personal reasons. That right there should be the severing of the umbilical cord and the end of James Harden's time. Then I think that John Alcorn is right, though. Divorce is over. Marriage canceling won't do it. Maury Parapovich and Dr. Phil John could not save this relationship either, in my mind, at this rate. But again, folks, some very damning remarks made by James Harden, who, again, via Tim McMahon of ESPN.com, says post-game, the Rockets are, quote, just not good enough. I love this city. I literally have done everything that I can. I mean, the situation is crazy. It's something that I don't think can be fixed. Close quote. Casey, I agree that James Harden is definitely a cancer. You know something, Casey? That was a big-time word that was used in my time playing high school baseball. We don't want cancers on our ball club. If you're going to be all about you or I and not, if it's going to be I and me and not we and us, get off this team. We don't want that type of atmosphere, here on, we don't want that atmosphere here. And if you don't like it, then get out of town, basically. And I think that those remarks, though, from Harden are going to be very, very, very looked upon as probably, what a way for him, what a way, though, for James Harden to probably end his time, though, at this rate and at this point in time. Isaiah writes in to say, Callan, absolutely disgraceful remarks by James Harden. In all my years of following sports and covering sports, I have never, ever, ever seen a player, coach, or team employee doing what Harden did. Normally, people would sugarcoat their true feelings and hide it, but he quit the Rockets tonight. If I'm Houston, I sit him out until I can get a trade package that I like. You have all the leverage right now. Sit him like the Pelicans did to Anthony Davis. And also, John says he knows he's not a true winner as well. Isaiah, I've been covering sports for 12 years. I have never as well seen the same thing, though, where it's kind of in a way, maybe, I wouldn't say it's sugar-coated, Isaiah, but guys not wanting to say the wrong thing, though, where it may in fact be interpreted as, hey, get me out of here and stuff of that caliber, though. But tonight, though, was probably the final straw that broke the camel's back, though, for James Harden's time in Houston, Texas. With that, folks, we will sign off for the night and sign off for one last time here on the lounge and go into tonight's final thoughts. Final thoughts time here, folks, on the MI6 Sports Network. As we wrap up here, folks, for the night. As a reminder, everybody, but once more, due to, as I have said, though, several times on this program, but due to the nature, once more, of a very hefty work schedule, again, folks, where, again, my Division I school and my D2 school plus the minor league hockey season is starting up shop this week. Again, I'll be, once more, everybody, taking a very brief but hiatus period to fulfill those obligations. And again, folks, my final program with you will be on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. I really, folks, don't know where to start here. I'll try to keep it brief and save it for Wednesday. But again, folks, I will not, once in fact I get back to working with you folks here on MI6, the lounge will be back, though, but it won't be obviously right away, though. But once more, the program is not going to go bye-bye again like it did for 8 years. After tonight's program does, in fact, conclude, though. But again, folks, I want to once more again just thank everybody here again for your outstanding support. And once again, for tuning in and being a part of our programs here. But again, we'll have a very formal send-off program, folks, 8:30 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. But again, folks, as I have said plenty of times here, but when I do, in fact, folks, come back following my season's concluding, the Sports Lounge will be back when, in fact, my time away from here is in fact back and back online. But once more, folks, tune in for one last hurrah on Wild Sports Talk on Wednesday. I don't know what the guys have lined up, but it's going to be probably a multi-hour special, and they're all probably going to be wearing black and crying their eyes out when it's like, I'll be back in a few months. I just have to obviously take care of what is important for me right now, and that, of course, is getting back to doing what I love most, and again, getting underway with my D2 school having their first basketball games of the year on Friday afternoon. But a quick shout out, though, to John Alcorn, Tyler Work, Isaiah Lee Young, and Casey King for tuning in, for writing in, and also for Christy Wilson. But with that, though, folks, at this rate, we will again see you folks back here for one final hoorah on Wednesday. Back here, folks, at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time, back here inside of the MI6 Sports Network. Back here, folks, coming away at 8:30 p.m. local time here. Again, do the math, though, folks, for your time zone, folks. With that in mind, the Sports Lounge is again officially closed for the next couple of months. Again, very short-lived, much like as Tyler said, though, like the XFL. But again, we will, the folks, be back with you. I can guarantee we will be back with you when, in fact, though, I get back from the work hiatus period. With that, folks, have a good night and take care and so long. Please stay safe and stay healthy. Good night and bye-bye.